Good evening, and welcome to week 6. We are thrilled to be here, as I know
Yay.
you are, because for our part 2 folks, this module 6 is your last module that we go through. There's some lengthy pieces in
Yeah.
there, but I think you're going to enjoy them as we start to wrap things up. We are coming to you this evening from Thunder Bay. We kind of like to contextualize where we are. Denise, you want to tell us about the painting behind us? It's so beautiful.
Sure. This is the bottom half you can say of a painting by Christian Morrisseau. He's an artist. He's the son of Norval Morrisseau. And if you happen to go to the Lakehead University building on campus, if you go in the education building on the east door, you will see an actual painting of his right there as well, an original that the
Nice.
school has.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
very talented gentleman.
Okay, so we're enjoying working through practicums, and folks are sending in some really amazing presentations. We appreciate that. I know Denise is making lots of comments. I'm mostly just reading them, but certainly enjoying them, and we're actually learning quite a bit from them, so we appreciate that. It's really been a really great learning experience for us as well, because we get an opportunity to see some of the resources you use and some of the links and videos and some ideas, and believe me, we found them very useful for our own learning. So as we said at the beginning, this is a
Yeah.
co-learning journey, so thank you
And
for all your work.
really the thinking that's been going into the data designed instructional pieces that you've been sharing has been really amazing to read. People are connecting quite well back to their area of focus for their own data set that they were using. And really, I'm thinking are setting the bar really, really high in terms of what you want to bring forward to your staff. And there's been some nice slide decks, some really good questions, really thinking about process to help focus your staff. Because when you come back to a school in September, you may be new to the school, or you may be returning to the school, or you may be on the school improvement team right now and you're going back as a teacher leader. But however that looks, really thinking about the context of what it is that you're after and why that's your area of focus will be key. And for most schools, you'll have some kind of data set, either EQAO, or if you're in another country or province, you'll have some school data that you can look at and use. And so part of what we do over the summer, that data usually comes out around August 26th for EQAO, and the first thing we do is we're waiting for the moment it comes out, and then we start combing through it and seeing what did the kids say on their surveys, what were overall trends, and then a few days later comes the individual student responses as well. So really one important piece of data, but we have a really quick time with it before we drop it right into our staff, because we have to be able to talk about that the very first day of school. And when we have our first school council meeting, we're wrapping that up and actually showing that out in parent language as well with parents.
And it is one, but I think we've both been impressed by the multiple sources of data that people are thinking of, because, certainly everybody in the province goes right to big
EQAO.
ones like EQAO and things like that, but there are certainly formative assessments and non-formative assessments that people are using throughout their teaching course. Things like we use our DRAs here. I think some use Flint Cooter. There are other
There's Tell Them For Me surveys some people have talked to. And in one survey, if I can just talk a little bit about Dean's practicum, or not practicum, but his data design instruction. He did a survey of students, parents, and staff in the fall, and just 4 really basic questions. And the one that struck out with me is, what do they want for their children? And everybody had very similar things, but when he got to the student voice about that, it was actually remarkable at how honest the kids were sharing about how they felt about school. And I was working with the student work study teachers today, and had a chance to actually watch a little mini video from a student in the province who talked about how they used to feel at school and how they feel now at school after having an opportunity to really find their voice and think in a growth mindset, positive stance. And it was a student that has a learning disability. And it was remarkable to watch this young person, I think he was only in grade 6, but articulate through video and probably educations or something, how his learning had changed from September, where he didn't really feel smart and didn't feel valued, and felt like school was just an angry place for him because he got frustrated, to really thinking about learning and making mistakes are opportunities for learning, and if we don't make mistakes, then we're not actually learning, and how he really changed his attitude with support of the teachers in his learning space. And so I thought that was just a nice connection for me as I was reading one and experiencing another at the same time. So whatever the data looks like, relevant to your school students, relevant to your teachers, relevant to your school community, I think are some pretty key things. So in module 6, we have our last module is 22 hours, it says. We have the final group of practicums that are up there. Wednesday night, if you're able to join in on Blab with Shane, he put the information up there for us on what we're looking. And then there's a one-pager he has there with virtual links in there. So I need a lesson on how to do that because I was looking at the how he does his office referrals in different Google Doc forms and then how it pops up and then it has a spreadsheet action back to the teacher. And it looks like as long as you had an iPad or a computer at your disposal, you could quickly just type that in and off goes your office referral.
Okay.
So I thought in this the days of PIM
That would be nice,
and system, student system,
That would be nice to have that.
I thought, oh, that's pretty neat.
So
looking forward to that. In terms of thinking about the accountability and freedom to change in those 4 questions, we were really thinking that using your EI, if you haven't, your EQI, that would be a good piece to help you do that reflection because there's a lot of, the questions connect back a lot to how you responded and what you were thinking as you did your EQI.
Yeah.
So one other little bit
Yeah,
in there.
there's the staffing piece.
Oh,
So
yes.
that you should see that tomorrow come up. And what we're going to do is we're going to give you a sample school's staffing allotment. So typically what happens in our board, and I imagine in most, when you're in a school as a principal, the human resources folks will send you, the staffing committee will send you the number of staff you have, and they'll be in terms of what are called FTE, full-time equivalents. And of course, you're certainly going to have some people that are 1.0 FTEs. You're also going to have lots of pieces of jobs as well, and they will be small percentages of jobs. One of the most challenging things you can get into, and we're going to give you a small school, and I'm going to give you a couple formulas, mathematic formulas, and we were just discussing the use
math
of
in real life.
Yeah, mathematics in real life, and it is an exercise in mathematics. It's an exercise in logic sometimes, but you'll get an opportunity to try to staff a small school. And one of the most challenging pieces will be staffing your planning time, which is either French or primary planning, depending on where you're at. For those of you who are not in Ontario, this may look really odd, so we'll also put in some of the collective agreement pieces so you know. We'll also give you exactly the number of minutes in the day because it does come down to calculating minutes along with percentages.
And when lunches, when your recesses are, nutrition breaks.
Right. And it's always fun when you get human resources folks will give you numbers that work, but numbers don't always work in classrooms. So for instance, they've given you 3 people and they're supposed to split 1 50-minute period. It works numerically. However, as you well know, it's not realistic. So it's a great, you know what, there's no right answer. Really, well, there is some right answers, but we'd like you to try it out.
Some are better than others.
Yeah, some answers are better than others. We would like you to try it out. Give yourself some time to look at it and think about it. But don't get too hung up on it.
And then when in real life, for those of you who haven't yet actually staffed a school, there's decisions that we make around knowing the people that we have in our building. So we have to obviously look at collective agreements and what do they say about seniority, about how people are given choice. In some collective agreements, teachers actually have choice into choosing this 2-3 job. In some collective agreements, you have choice to pick into the school, and as long as you're qualified, then the principal has managerial rights to put you into a job. So knowing those collective agreements, depending on your own context, are really critical. I always also think about the strengths of the teachers, and I place them against the needs of the students. So just because you taught grade 1 this year and you happen to be fabulous at it, it may be that there's a group of kids in grade 3 that really, really are needing all of those things that you as an instructional leader or teacher have. And so those are the kinds of conversations I will engage in with my staff when I feel that this group of children really needs them. And I just, we can't afford for those children to not have that opportunity to have that teacher. So, I mean, while those conversations, they always chuckle, oh, are you flattering me again? But the reality is you want to be able to match based on what you know about your students with how your teachers are operating from that area of strength, and not just leaving people because you always have and that's been the status quo. One thing too in the province of Ontario that we have to consider, it's a major must do, is they have to be qualified in the division. So while I may have taught grade 1 for the last 5 years, I should not be teaching grade 1 if I don't have the qualifications, unless I have a special letter of permission that's usually granted only for 1 year by the superintendent. Oh, my cat's just hopped into the picture. Jeez.
Good
So-
evening, Peach.
Give her a little push out of the way.
Hi, Pichu. That was
So-
Pichu saying hi.
So, I mean, just really be thinking of those kinds of things. Well, we're going to give you sort of a cut and dry mathematical formula to try to place those pieces in. Really, there's way more decisions than just the numbers.
And
that
I'll
we
say a
think
quick
about.
piece on that. A couple suggestions. When you walk into a school, sometimes you will notice some things that you feel need to be changed right away. That's not always the right time to do it. But it is a time to start building the relationships and the trust and the transparency that when you do have to make some hard, difficult decisions and moving people from places they've always been or places they love or away from their friends, that you have some solid ground to stand on to do that, because it is necessary for kids to have the right teacher at the right time in the right grade. And you have to be able to make those decisions, but without creating, it's always, because you're asking people to change, will always create some angst in folks. But you need to be able to do it and have them trust that you, believe in the process and that you are working in the best interest of kids, and they're willing to go with that, even if it's uncomfortable for them.
That's true. I won't disagree with that. I think that's a key piece. And usually the staffing's done by the outgoing principal. So when you come into a school, you have what you have.
Yeah.
And you spend a lot of time looking, watching, and having those conversations so that when, collaboratively you're thinking about how can we improve this, because it's always about that continual cycle of improvement. I think of, there's many business cases, I will say Japanese auto car makers are a classic one, but where it's a continual refined improvement of the product, in our case, education. Now, I guess that's about it for this week. Not a whole lot there. Really, the whole course has to be up and finished by the 17th. So if you want to go back in the course and add and write anything, you can feel free to do that. If you want to stick just within Module 6 because you feel like you've exhausted the first ones, that's fine too. I'm still going back and forth in things, looking in. As I see things now, sometimes I'm thinking, oh gosh, I remember reading about that, and then I want to go back and comment on that, for Module 2 or 3, for instance. But really, it's up to you. You just keep working through your stuff. We have Shane, Lori, Gail, Roxanne, Angela are doing their practicums for this week. And for those people that shared their practicums with part 1, I know we could have asked anybody. They've all been very good, but I tried to pick 3 very diverse ones. The part 1 students have been thrilled with the examples and the exemplars, they call them. Oh, thank you for the exemplars. But thank you for sharing those. And just so you know, the work that you're doing is not only having an impact with people in our own course, but obviously your region, the board that you're working in that you did your practicum with, and then also helping the part 1 students along so they have an idea what this could look like. So have a good week. We'll be in touch midweek next week, just sort of as a final wrap up, and hopefully we'll see you on Blab on Wednesday. All right, take care.
Have a good evening.